looks like we have,
This meeting is being recorded.
looks like we have, well, let me do one more thing here. I have to do captions because it makes the easier to do the minutes. Now let me. Okay. I think we're ready to go. I see Kevin McCabe from is here with us from the town, and we have Caitlin Glass with us, and Scott Salvucci is on, but we can't see him. Um, but I think we're ready to go. So the meeting's being recorded. We have a couple of matters on tonight. One is an administrative matter, which we'll talk about later. But the first is a resumption of the hearing on the Noanut Brook project. So this is a resumption of that hearing. It's an application of the town of Dover by its highway department for a special permit to replace culverts for Noanut Brook on Willow Street and Dedham Street within 150 feet of the Charles River. Caitlin, do you want to say anything further to us in support of the application before we get into questions and discussions?
I don't think I have much to add. We gave the presentation last time of giving an overview of the project. I'd be happy to run through any questions that folks have. After the last meeting, we submitted the order of conditions and the design basis memos for both culverts. So hopefully that provided the information that you were looking for. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the big issue was under the bylaw uh, when you're doing construction or alteration of a street or pavement or other impervious surface within the setback, you need to demonstrate that what you're going to do is not going to alter the natural pattern of drainage into a river or stream and will not alter the rate, volume, or physical, chemical, or biological characteristics of runoff within the 150-foot setback. Well, let me ask the board members if hopefully you've had a chance to review the materials, additional materials that were submitted. Any thoughts, questions, comments about complying with the bylaw?
No.
Mike,
not
you have
really.
something to ask. This is your bailiwick, the technical aspects
I
of
know. No, I really
engineering
don't
and
have
construction.
anything. I mean, other than, the environmental stuff you have to consider. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward civil engineering job. Probably a lot of standard practice there. Um, you know, no, I just think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the CAD numbers, whatever they're called. I forget what they're called, but the kind of analysis that's sometimes done for the
Oh, you're talking about the curve number.
curve numbers, yes.
Yeah.
Um, but it sounds pretty straightforward here to me. They're pretty much replacing what was there with something that's basically equivalent.
Yeah, but basically they're going across a road, which is an impervious surface. So I'm not even sure if the curve number applies.
Um,
Yeah, there'll be no change. Yeah. Were you
Yeah,
going to say that, Caitlin?
yeah, there's no increase in impervious area, if that's what the
Yeah.
question is. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, I would echo what Mike said. It's really a replacement of existing culverts that are failing and undersized and in need of replacement.
It seems like something that has to be done, the repairs have to be done. So it makes sense to me.
You could always shut down Willow Street, but I don't think that's a real viable option.
Oh.
Not an ideal one from the town side of it.
The other thing that's potentially a concern is there's related bylaw, related subsection of the bylaw for crossing a brook. To get a special permit, you have to show that it will not significantly restrict the flow of the brook and will not increase the risk of flooding in the event of a 100-year storm, and will enable access to a parcel of land that may not otherwise be accessed without such crossing. But to me, my legal analysis is that this is not really that kind of situation. You know, this isn't a situation where somebody wants to come in and build a new house or put in a subdivision and they're going to cross the brook and show these elements. What's happening here, obviously, is that there's already culverts there, and this is simply a replacement of those. So the purpose is not to access a new parcel of land, but simply restore conditions to something that's functional. So it seems to me that section of the bylaw doesn't really apply. Does anybody think we need to do a site visit?
I don't think so. No.
I would love to, but that's because I'm a nerd.
Yeah, I mean, it looks to me like it's pretty straightforward. We're just replacing existing culverts with something that is either functionally equivalent or functionally better,
Yep.
particularly
Well,
for Dedham Street.
That's right.
Yeah, we don't want it to end up like the Baltimore Bridge.
God, what a nightmare.
Yeah, but that's what happens when you let the infrastructure get old and decrepit.
Well, I'm concerned that Willow Street in particular might have to be shut down, you know, with the culvert deteriorating. Obviously, it needs to be repaired and replaced.
Yep.
Those metal plates have been there for about 8 years. So I think it's time.
My staff told me they did those in the late 90s. I definitively have a report from Bob Homer, the former town engineer from 2003,
Yeah.
about talking about replacing this culvert. So this has been on Dover's timetable for a long time here. So we're looking to get this done for you this summer.
Yeah, I was actually on um, the board. I'm sorry, what's it called? The Finance Committee on Roads, and the it surprised me when the plates went down that something wasn't done more quickly to do a more permanent resolution of the problem. I'm not sure why that didn't happen at the time, but obviously that's having plates there for 20 years is not an ideal solution.
No, and I guess to kind of answer your question about immediate shutdown of the roadway, I thought that was a situation I was going to be in August. I called a favor into MassDOT, which this does not fall into their jurisdiction because it doesn't span over 10 feet. So they actually sent the dive team in August and did a the professional engineer, structural engineer did a on their dive team. They went under there, investigated, did some photos, and did a report for us. Through all the all the flooding we saw in August, the Noanid Brook actually it impounded so much there that where those Jersey barriers are on the outside, that entire head wall actually fell into the drink on the inlet side. So that kind of, as your public works professional, made me pretty nervous. So that's why I called MassDOT in, because I thought that was going to be a situation that I would have to shut the bridge down until we were at this point, and then subsequent construction this summer.
Which would have been a real problem when they had to close one side of the bridge over the river into Needham on the end of Dedham Street.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they wouldn't have been able to divert the traffic over Willow Street. Would have been a much bigger detour. Okay, anything else that anybody has questions about or wants to discuss?
Yeah, I want to just hold on. I want to just compliment the folks on the other end of the phone about the quality of their drawings and the in-depth information they gave us. It was really superior to what we're used to getting. So I say thank you very much. Um, being an engineer, when I look at drawings, one of the ways to tell if a drawing is superior are the drawing notes. And you have very copious and detailed and lots of drawing notes that um, basically capture and prevent all the gotchas that happen when you don't have that type of information on your drawings. So the quality of drawings and the quality of the project are going to be superior because of how you put your drawings together and the information you put on it. So thank you.
That's a great compliment. Thank you very much.
Does anybody
Thank
see
you,
any-
Mike.
Does anybody see any need to impose any conditions on this?
Wouldn't. I don't.
I'm not aware of any need for conditions. Mike, do you see anything we need to specify?
Yeah, I think the only thing is traffic. I don't know. There's nothing we can do, but no, any way that it can be constructed and still allow cars to go over it at night or something would be great. But I don't know.
Well, let me ask the applicant, is there any issue, what are your plans in terms of time, construction periods, time of day, and how that impacts traffic?
Yeah, so there's no option where this isn't going to be a full closure detailed through um, Miller Street.
Okay.
So, there's only one house on the farther side, which would obviously have access up to their driveway. The contractor and equipment are going to have to stage in the roadway. Depending on the extent of the dewatering, I don't see that as a feasible option. Potentially for the Dedham Street project, that'd be something we could look at, where the footprint's a little bit wider there. And there's certainly a lot more annual daily traffic along that roadway. But timeline for this would be between 3 and 4 months. And that's complete. So that wouldn't be a complete closure for that time, but that'd be the time frame. And Woodard and Curran can correct me, but they have to have substantial completion. I think it's 90 days and then final completion within 120 days of commencement of work.
Yeah, that's right.
So your plan was to do Willow Street first, then Dedham?
Correct. So this year, I don't know. Yeah, so that'll be a subsequent request. I'm going to try to get grant funding in this round of the one-stop grant through the MassWorks infrastructure. I tried that this past year for both culverts, and very competitive grant. And the feedback we had is that, they're looking for more shovel-ready projects, whereas Dedham Street this go around, A, will be half the request of last year's request, and B, will be a shovel-ready permitted project. So that would be a subsequent year. In an ideal world, it'd be next construction season. Or potentially farther out. And I'm not aware of how long this permit is good for, but I know like conservation is typically 3 years, and then you could always get an extension if need be. The designer plan wouldn't change, but
special permits, normally the construction needs to begin within 2 years after the permit is granted. I don't remember the time I've been on the board, which is I think 13 years. Nobody's come for an extension, but so I'm not sure whether that's permitted, but I think the rule is that if you don't start construction within the 2 years, then you can't come back for the same relief again for at least 2 years. But this is not your typical situation, so it might be possible to get an extension on the initial permit if that's necessary.
Well, would they be better off, Alan, of just getting permission now or a permit for Willow Street and come back for Dedham Street?
Well, I guess that's the question for the applicant, whether they'd rather proceed that way.
No, because this is the same way we did with conservation. I'm just talking, I guess, crazy. I do imagine we're going to have this construction start on both projects within 2 years. whether I get the grant or not, I'm still probably going to move forward with Denham Street request next year. And if not, it would be the subsequent year. So it'd still be within a 2-year timeline.
Okay. Are there any restrictions on, like uh, time of day restrictions on when you can do this work where we could impose conditions that give you more leeway?
Typically, most contractors are 7 to 3.
Because I know a lot of the, on the 40Bs, they want to work 7 to 5 or longer every day, 6 days a week, and so forth. So,
Yeah, I even on Claybrook Road, 7 to 3, they had a couple of extenuating circumstances, such as doing hot top and stuff like that on a Saturday, which would just need the request of my department to do that paving. But other than that, I don't see anything out of the norm unless they were driving in there. We are closing in on that substantial completion date. But from a contractor standpoint on this project, this is, it's a precast 4-wall structure. So they would submit those shop drawings, right? We'd approve those. And it, it's really the biggest piece of this would be the dewatering. It's a pretty straightforward project. If that's something you can allow, I don't see, in case those circumstances do arise. But I don't foresee that being an issue.
I don't think there may in the bylaws there may be some restrictions on time of day when limits on how long each day you can work, but I think
currently there's none. We have no construction hours, and I know that's a bylaw going to town meeting this year. But municipal work would be exempt from that.
okay, so that's not an issue. Okay, so it sounds like we don't have any real problems here. Does anybody see any reason not to grant the special permit as requested?
No,
Then I'll entertain a motion to grant the special permit as requested.
So moved.
Have a second?
second,
All in favor?
I,
Okay, the motion is granted unanimously. As you probably know, what'll happen is that we will write up a written decision that gets filed with the town clerk. From the day of filing, there's a 20-day appeal period in case anyone wants to contest it. Probably not going to happen here, but we have to give them a chance anyway. And once the 20 days is up, if there's no challenge, then the town clerk will issue a notice that there is no appeal. And at that point, you can, assuming you've satisfied all the other requirements like Concom, you'll be able to get your building permit or whatever's needed to proceed.
Excellent.
So thank you very much.
Great.
Presentation, we appreciate it. And we'll be delighted to see the projects done and get these things fixed.
yeah.
Great. Thank you. I look forward to bringing Dover another successful project.
Great, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Don't everybody sign off on the board. The one other matter that I want to discuss is administrative. My wife and I are starting the process of, anticipating moving soon out of town, which means that I can't serve on the board anymore. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be resigning shortly. What I'll do is I'll get this decision written up and circulated and filed. But as soon as that's done, it's a good time to do it because there's no pending matters. There does appear to be another Red Robin Pastures 40B. They won't call it Red Robin Pastures, but it'll be the same people, probably under a different legal entity, but same guys in the same neighborhood as Red Robin Pastures coming forward with the 40B. And I don't want to be in a situation where we start the hearings with me on the board and then I resign and you've automatically lost one of the 5 people and run the risk of not having at least 3 people through the whole process to make a decision.
Where are you gonna go? We're gonna miss you. You can't leave.
oh, no, I don't think you can, Alan.
Leave, Alan.
It's
No,
possible.
yeah.
I'm getting old.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. Are
I've
you
been,
gonna
I've,
stop? Are you gonna stop working or move back to where your son is? What are you gonna do?
no, I've been hoping to retire for several years and just taken much longer than I expected to wind down my caseload, but I'm almost there. I've got one last case that was actually supposed to go to trial last week, and it
Uh-huh.
got postponed. But we started looking. We wanted to go down to the Cape and in the Harwich Chatham area, and we started looking, and it's much like, I don't know if you pay attention to the Dover real estate market, but there's almost nothing available, and when it becomes available, it sells in a matter of days.
Yeah,
Well, it's the same thing down on the Cape, uh, particularly where we would like to be. So we started looking, and something came up, and we submitted an offer the other day that was accepted. So in Harwich. Uh,
nice. That's nice
so
down there.
so we'll be closing on that in May, and put our house here on the market sometime soon, and then
Wow, big
we'll move.
changes. Those are big changes.
It is. We've been in Dover
Hey.
for 32 years.
Yeah, that's a big change. Wow.
Hmm.
So I
Are you
just
gonna
want
go to, are you gonna go to Florida in the winter or just stay at the Cape?
no, we'll stay on the Cape.
Okay.
We're not we Florida doesn't have that much appeal to us.
No, me neither, but the Cape is pretty boring in the winter.
We don't mind boring.
Boring is all right.
We can
Boring's
keep
all right.
ourselves in, and we won't be far from the Harwich Community Center, so and not far from the regional high school.
Yeah.
Uh, there'll be activities that we can keep ourselves entertained, and
Mhm.
if we have to, we can take a trip here or there um, to get away, which we might do. Alice has a brother, and his one of his sons live in Durham, North Carolina. We can
Oh, nice.
go down there and visit when it's too cold up here and be a little warmer down there. And Alice has a brother. Her other brother is in Chatham. They just last year retired down there. Uh, so we'll have them to keep us company if nobody else.
Well, we'll come visit.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
Absolutely.
plan.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
Well,
plan.
and I do want to say it's been an absolute pleasure to serve with all of you. Um, some of you longer than others, Mike and Laverne.
I've been here forever. Yeah,
Been here longer than I have.
I know, I
Both,
know.
both of you, Mike and Laverne.
Yes, Mike
Uh,
is my buddy.
but you guys have been great, and Nadir and Nancy, it hasn't been as long for you guys, but I've really appreciated your joining and participating and contributing. So,
Well,
uh,
Alan, how are we going to replace your gray matter?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got it all in your head.
well,
How, yeah.
that's the way everybody felt when the previous chairman, Gary Lilienthal, left.
Mm,
He was on the board, I think, for about the same amount of time I was, and
Yeah.
was chair for most or all of that time. Laverne would know better than me.
Actually, I have to say, we thought he was irreplaceable until we got you.
So you see,
And now we know he wasn't irreplaceable. He was very good too. Very,
and
very good. Yeah.
I'm not irreplaceable either.
So now will the selectmen go to work to try to find a replacement? I think that's their job.
Well, it's their job to find somebody to appoint. It would be good, Nadir's an attorney.
Oh, okay.
It's
there you
helpful.
go, Nadir. Step up, my
Not-
friend.
That's
Not
it.
not that kind of attorney though.
No, what I was going to say was since we've had the board, there's always been two. Since I've been on the board, there's always been two attorneys.
Yeah.
Gary and me, and now Nadir and me, and Ham Hackney was an attorney. I think because a lot of this is legally oriented,
Legal. Yeah.
you want to have. I think it's ideal you want to have more than one attorney on the board. You need a variety of backgrounds. Like Mike's engineering background is enormous.
Yeah, very helpful.
And Laverne, your business background is helpful. But I think, ideally you'd want another attorney to fill the vacancy. One thing that occurred to me, I doubt it's would happen, but Ham Hackney at least might be persuaded to come back at least temporarily, to serve until somebody longer term could be found. If there's if there's any difficulty finding an attorney to replace me, he might be arm twisted into coming back at least temporarily to fill in. The problem is, of course, if you get a 40B, then that's going to go on for a while, and you kind of have to stick with it until that's over.
Mike,
Anyway,
is that 40B near you, Mike? Is that down on Draper Road or
Yeah,
Tisdale?
Tisdale. It's off of Tisdale.
it's
Tisdale.
between the existing Tisdale development
Yeah.
and Robin Pastures 40B on 109.
And they did
Yeah.
not get John Vanassos to sell. He wouldn't sell, right? Because he
As far as I
was
know,
the missing link.
as far as I know, he wouldn't sell, hasn't sold. But they had, if you remember, they bought a parcel there on
Yeah.
Tuesday, and they used part of that to add to the Red Robin Pastures project. I think they originally wanted to combine that parcel with the 109 parcels, to make one single gigantic project, but they couldn't get
Mhm.
that done in time. So now they're doing a separate project.
And it's going to be apartments like the other one? At least
I
all
have
of
no
those
idea.
units will count.
I have no idea. I
Yeah.
discourage, it's not appropriate for the Board of Appeals to be involved in the pre-hearing part of the
Right.
process. And so I discourage the planning board and town officials from keeping me informed in the loop of information about what's happening. I have heard that they've gotten the pre-approval from Mass Housing. So I think it's probably not too far in the future before they'll be filing with the Board of Appeals, but I don't have any real idea of when that'll happen.
And have we heard anything about our denial on the Tote Brook Chickering Road 40B?
Well, it just got filed, so there's a 20-day
Yeah.
appeal
Oh, that's
period.
right. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I assume they'll appeal, but don't know that for sure.
You'll be gone by then.
Yeah.
Well, no, well, I won't be gone by the time they appeal, if they appeal in the 20-day appeal period. But I'll be gone before the appeal is decided, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's
But
all very exciting.
We wish you luck, Alan. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for all your service.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Really.
congratulations to you and your wife.
It's been an absolute pleasure to serve. I've really enjoyed it. It gives you a chance to meet a lot of people in town and other professionals. The peer review consultants we've had on the 40Bs have been a pleasure to work with, and hopefully they can help us on any future 40Bs that come along. They do terrific work and are easy to work with. I've really enjoyed it, and never would have imagined that I would have served 13 years. So it's it's been great, and I'm sure I'll miss it to some extent. I won't miss the work that goes with it.
I bet.
Well,
Oh,
I work hard to make the decisions as well done as possible, particularly on the controversial ones like the 40Bs, so that if there's an appeal, it's easier to defend. We've also been uh, the minutes, once we realized that the minutes were as important as they are legally, the town clerk, Felicia, started doing them for us. And what she basically does is not quite verbatim, but pretty close to verbatim from the recordings of the hearings. So they tend to, on the 40Bs, they can be anywhere from 5 to 15 pages of single spaced text.
wow.
And she does a good job of doing a first draft, but I go through and try to make that as presentable as possible. Just formatting. Sometimes she doesn't understand a technical term and guesses at what the spelling is, and I have to fix that. Things like that, or getting the tenses right or the reference. If Lynn Sweet, for example, is saying we want to do this, and Felicia writes it down as, we want to do this, but it's not in quotes, then you have to reformat to say, the applicant wants to do this. You know, little stuff like that. It's substantively, there's not a lot of change, but formatting wise, can be a certain amount of effort. But so, you know, I won't miss that, but otherwise, I will certainly miss the pleasure of, you know, the interestingness of the projects, the proposals, sometimes the legal issues involved, and working with the planning board, for example, on the bylaw changes relating to the in-law suites, accessory dwelling units, as they call them.
Yep.
There's going to be some of those coming along too. They'll be, you know, fairly simple matters to deal with. But now that the bylaw has been changed, this one on Claybrook, I'm sure will be coming back shortly. 3 Claybrook. And presumably there'll be others as well, because a lot of people were asking about them before they changed the bylaw. And those will be relatively easy to deal with. And those you should, you know, as much as possible, do site visits just to get a look at
See what they look like.
properties and situations. That's been a lot of the fun on some of these matters, is to do a site visit and see what the actual layout is, and you know, it's a way to get around and we'll learn a little more about the town.
Definitely.
I'm running and riding your bike and all those fun things now, huh?
Yeah, well, where we're gonna move to is not far from the rail trail,
Nice.
so I can easily hop on there on my bike, and
Yeah.
and it's a relatively flat area. So, you know, around here, it's my running routes are rather. I live on top of a hill, Cedar Hill, so the end of my run is always uphill, which I could do without.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's going to be fun down there, and I don't know if I'll get involved in anything down there, but I think Alice would prefer that I not. But if I don't have work to do anymore, my job to do anymore, if I actually retire, then
She probably would like you to do something.
Yeah, she'd want you to do something.
I'm very much hoping that she and I can do a lot more together than we've been able to up to this point.
So my friend David Nixon, I don't know if you knew David Nixon from 72 Farm Street.
No.
Moved to Chatham, and he's been on the Board of Appeals in Chatham now for like 15 years.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know. He was a selectman here for a couple of years in Dover.
I've enjoyed being on the Board of Appeals, but I think I've had enough.
Yeah, believe it.
Maybe I'll do something else for the town down there, but not the Board of Appeals.
All right.
Well, anyway, thank you all, and it has been a pleasure to serve with all of you. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it. Yeah, I will copy you on my letter of resignation once I submit it, but we'll get this decision done first, and then I'll say bon voyage.
Wow. Oh,
See you soon.
another era, an end of an era.
Yeah,
I don't think this is going to go in the history books, Laverne.
Never know.
But it's been fun. It's been fun. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Alan.
Thank you for everything.
Bye.
Okay.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.